to Hawaii at the time. So I remember that really well. And there you can see that part of that infrastructure I was telling you about, the pyramid. Oops. There's a car plane, and you can see all the limos lined up, all the Secret Service stuff. And then, of course, all the drivers and the Secret Service support guys ride with the car plane. And here we show the limo moving in. You can see how low to the ground it is. It's they call it the Beast. It's built like a tank. It's all armored up, and there's not much you can do to punch a hole in it. But you can see there's another C5 back there, and that's going to be loaded down with fuel trucks and stuff like that too. And this is just a sample of what our trays look like as they go out. And up here is the rear galley of the 747. And there's one of the guys assembling the meal. You can see we've got our trays lined up. And then there's more room right here. And then alongside here, there's another countertop where we can set up more trays. The 707 that we had, you can only do like 12 trays at a time, and this is like double. So we can do tremendously fast service. And then there's just a few knickknacks that, of course, we got on the table here that everybody can take a look at. And that's the end of that. So anybody have any questions? I'd be glad to ask. Ma'am?
Oh, which president were you most impressed with and enjoyed working with the most?
Well, let's put it this way, you know, George Bush is my favorite because I've been with him the longest, but Ronald Reagan, to me, there was this like an aura around him. He was like the president.
Yeah.
You knew this, like the older generation, everybody knew your respected office, blah, 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 you know, all this stuff. And nowadays, nobody cares, or in the last few years anyway, nobody cares about the office or respects the office itself. You know, they just, you know, bring whoever you want into office and they just do whatever. It's just not the same, but with Reagan, it was that way. President Bush was, you know, you're still the president and all that, but it seemed like he was too at ease with everybody. He made you feel too comfortable. Even though, you know, President Reagan did, but at the same time, you respected him, you respected the office, and, you know, just the White House in general. Man.
Did you ever try to eat President Bush broccoli?
Oh yeah, the broccoli thing. I forgot to tell you that. President Bush hated broccoli, and with a passion, and he had told me that I will not eat broccoli. It's because he was force-fed that as a kid, and he said, never again, when I grow up, I'll never eat broccoli again. And one of the staff members actually had a little poster board made with a little circle with the cross through it with a little broccoli floret put in there, and he gave it to us for, you know, sort of a joke and all that, but it wasn't really a joke. But he didn't really like cauliflower either, but it was just broccoli. So if you ever serve broccoli, you're on the carpet. And that did happen one time. Sir?
On the 747 that we saw the picture of, how many galleys were there on that plane? Where were they located?
The galleys, we had two on both airplanes, but they're right behind the cockpit is the first one, and then at the extreme tail is the second. And then we also had, in the bellies, we have refrigerator freezers. They're the 60 cubic feet each. So that gives us a long term. We could go like 20, 30 days self-contained is what we shoot for, you know, for overseas trips. So you don't have to worry about shopping or getting local produce and things like that, because, you know, health reasons. So
Did Did you have elevators to move things?
No, we had a staircase.
Staircase.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see the president actually walking up a staircase in the front. And we got that in the back too. And then it's just another little corridor. You just spin around, there's another door, and then so you can access it in flight. So we can always keep our stuff downstairs until we need it, and then bring it up and then finish cooking. Otherwise, you'd be jam-packed with foodstuffs everywhere.
Probably two-part. Doesn't the press and others fly on Air Force One, and if they do, you guys don't have to prepare their food, do somebody else prepare their food?
Oh, the press, you mean?
There's others on the flight, is not?
Oh, yeah, we have, the press is on the flight. It's a pool, and it's a representative from each of the organizations. So it's roughly about 15 to 20, depending on how many seats are allocated. But they do come on board the airplane, and they sit in the back of the plane, and then in front of them is the Secret Service. And then comes the staff, and then the presidential suite and all that stuff. But the rule of thumb is that you can always go to the rear of your seat, but not forward. And that was the reason for the Secret Service, to keep them from going forward. The president usually comes back for a press conference or whatever, or sometimes they may be sent forward to the conference room, and if they have a press conference or something like that, which is rare when they come up to the front. Usually the president goes to the back.
Was there a different crew to prepare their meals?
No, everybody gets the same. Yeah, and another question a lot of people ask is, what about payment for the flight? Usually the guests and the press, what they do is it comes through the White House travel office, and they look for the highest price first class seat price plus $1. So there won't be no competition with the airlines. And that's how they get paid. And beyond that, I don't know where the money's come from, but that's the explanation that we get, so that we were able to give off. Sir.
Yeah, how big was the formal dining area? And did you have multiple dining areas for like the crew and the press?
Well, the front galley was mainly concerned with feeding the president and the first family and the crew. And then depending on what meals they are, sometimes they share with we'll take care of some of the immediate staff members. And we sort of divide the airplane in half. And then the rear half would be the rear galley. The rear galley can actually accommodate almost everybody, but we just sort of split it up. The front galley would take care of the crew, because the crew would sometimes eat at a different time according to body clock. Sir?
Yeah, the 747 had in-flight refueling. That's pretty dangerous. Did they ever perform that while the president was on board for any reason?
Perform what?
The in-flight refueling on the 747.
I couldn't really hear that, but.
Did they ever perform the in-flight refueling?
Just recently they did do that. It's short. Anytime you do air refueling, it's dangerous, but it's pretty much down to a science now. The pilots train for that all the time, but it was done recently, and it really can't. It's not since not while I was there, but since just very recently actually, it was done so they can make that one long trip without landing. So it has been done, but it usually was there for emergency purposes only. The other doomsday airplane, the E-4B, that had that capability for since 1975, I think it was. So they've it's been down to an art, and the pilots went down there for training with the guys at Omaha to keep current.
I worked on that program while it was being developed. It could fly 3 days without landing.
Yes, sir.
Typical mission was 12 hours without refueling. It could fly 3 days.
That's what I understand, yeah.
And then it was training to back up.
Anybody else? Sir.
When you would lay over in foreign cities, did you bring food to hotels for the president? Was the host country trusted to serve food to the president when he laid over in foreign countries?
Well, state dinners, I guess you have to eat their stuff, but the White House has a couple food service specialists that travel with them, and they're Secret Service guys that are qualified too. They monitor what's being done, while food's being prepared. So that's, again, that's another layer of security going on. So, they're trusted, everybody's been checked out, so, I don't know too much about all that, but I know all their food is being watched while it's being prepared, and from, preparation to the being served on the plate. So that's as far as I know. So, but it does happen, and then other meals are prepared on site for the president by our own people. So, anything that's not state-sponsored, or sometimes they just go to the embassy when we're in foreign countries, and that's where he gets his meals at.
On a typical flight, how many of your type of staff would there be on board? In other words,
Okay,
attendants and cooks.
there's 10 flight attendants on board the airplane.
And how many people generally would you be serving that?
Usually-
Crew and everybody?
Well, with crew, it was probably about 80 people. It's not that many people because it's all compartmentalized inside, and then the seats are nice and wide, and there's tables, for the staff members to work on and such. So it takes up a lot of room. Ma'am?
Speaking to the other gentleman's question, I was at an event after President Herbert Walker Bush retired in Houston, and I happened to be sitting at a table where a lady said, "Excuse me, I have to go and eat the president's dinner." So they had tasters that would go and taste everything before the president was allowed to eat.
Yeah, I really couldn't gather. I'm sorry, my hearing is shot. After 8,000 hours of flying, it's like, I really couldn't gather everything that you had said, ma'am.
I had gone to a gathering where the retired President Bush was attending, and I happened to be sitting at a table with a lady who said, "Excuse me, I have to go eat the president's food." She was the taster for the food before he could eat it.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about that, but I wouldn't doubt it. All the other heads of state have that. I know in China.
I've never heard of it.
Well, in China, I know they have that. I've seen other things that would comparable to that.
Was there ever a flight that you were on?
I can't hear.
Was there ever a flight that you were on that you were concerned?
No, gee, I'm sorry. I just can't.
Afraid for safety during a flight? Were you ever afraid for,
Oh, one time I was kind of worried. We were in South America. We were going to crossing the Andes, and I was sitting in the back of the plane. My duty station in the very back, and we had the fold down seats up against the bulkhead, and the pilot says, wanted everything put away, strap everything down, make sure everybody's in their seatbelts. We're going to be crossing the Andes, and there's a nice ocean wave that comes off the Pacific, and it's always rough no matter where you're at, and we're way up at altitude. And it says, so make sure everybody's strapped in, and it's going to be a good 5 minutes, maybe longer. And so I get in the seat belt, and it's a five-point harness, like a racing harness almost, and I cinch it down, and my partner's sitting next to me, and he's cinching it down also, and then we sitting there prepared for this, and all of a sudden airplanes go wham, 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 and you start shaking, and you can look down the center aisle, and you can see the airplane is sort of bouncing longitudinally, just boom, boom, and then we're sitting next to the door, and you can hear the air sucking out because the door is moving, because the airplane is actually bending, and then we were slamming up and down, up and down, up and down, and it's like, when's this going to end? And then I felt like my straps weren't tight enough, so I kept on tightening, and I was like, I'm running out of straps here. But eventually it got out, but that's probably the worst I ever thought I felt. Other than one time I was part of the test team when we first got the airplane out of Wichita, Kansas, before it was delivered to the Air Force One bunch, we had to send a couple flight attendants up to Wichita to do the test flying on the airplane before it could be assigned to the Air Force One. We have to went up to 35,000 feet, and the test for the day was to test see how rapid we could get to the ground after a rapid decompression. And so this was going to be a simulated rapid decompression. So we were all prepared, everybody was strapped in, and then we got the alarm bell that it's going to happen. So here we go, and of course it wasn't really a rapid decompression, it was just simulated. So here we go, the airplane all of a sudden just go wham, just drops out of the sky, and the next thing you know, we're just falling and falling and falling. And I said, whoa, I'm just not falling weightlessly, because again, I'm in the back of the plane. And all of a sudden I'm looking around, and then here comes the ground, like real quick. The next thing I know, I see the flaps coming out, and then the gear deploying, and then the ground's coming up again, and then the next thing you know, we're landing. And wham, and this thing had found an airport that we could land at, and we landed, and felt like it was kind of hard, but apparently it wasn't. And then all the wings and the engines and stuff were oscillating, and the next thing I know, the staircase goes down, and several of the engineers that are on board run out, and I didn't understand what was going on. And apparently they had went out to test the brakes to see what the temperatures were on the brakes because of the hard braking that they had done. And then everybody came back up. Next thing I knew, the engines reared up, and poof, there we go. We took off and did a short climb, and then a hard turnaround, and then we landed again within the field's length, so this airplane can really turn on a dime. So I was really, ever since then, I was impressed in what this airplane can do. And then we landed again, and then he did a max effort takeoff, and we just went shooting for the stars. It's way up there, and then before long we were back at 35,000 feet again, heading for Kansas. But that's part of the checkout flights for these airplanes that all the pilot manuals say an airplane can do a certain thing. The airplane has to be able to do that, and that's what was going on with this. So I was involved in a lot of those flights, doing several things like smoke elimination. The airplane has to be able to eliminate smoke in a certain amount of time using the certain systems and stuff. And then the airplane didn't pass the first couple times, but eventually it did. And that's a pretty scary scenario. If one system doesn't work, you do another. And what they actually do is deploy a little, like a mini flare that puts out a little smoke, a little fog. And it's kind of scary, but they all have it controlled because they do it on a daily basis. These were the Boeing test pilots. So we had total faith in these guys because they've been doing these since, I think it was 1969 is when the first Boeing was flying. The first 747 anyway. So that was an interesting program, but I was glad I was put into that. I was, I've always been interested in how airplanes fly mechanically and such, so I was sort of asked if I would mind getting involved in that too. So I got a little variety of what I do, so I'm kind of interested in all the facets of this organization and flying. So that's all I got. I hope didn't bore you too much, and I was kind of scared, and I'm not into the public speaking, I do cooking. So thank you very much.